Don't pay me any attention. Please continue. So, my name is Elizabeth Wellington. I'm a columnist and a lifestyle writer and art critic and fashion person, a Black person for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I've been at the Inquirer for about 23 years. And I met Backside Squad, founder of the Philadelphia Museum. About 10 years ago, I was covering fashion. We were at the peak. And I said, she walked in on clothing, and she said, I have this thing, it's called Philadelphia Museum. And my eyes lit up because I was hiding from my boss, drinking wine. And she tells me about things, and I said, this is something I was right about because my colors, your colors, we're all colors. We need colors together. So I wrote the story, and we became fast friends. So now, because we're friends, like we're just real homies, I don't really need any more work to do. But she keeps giving me more work to do. She calls me and she's like, care about this black thing and that black thing. We need to cover this black thing. And I'm like, there's so much black. But I started covering more art. So that happened. So now fast forward to earlier this year, and she introduces me to William, who's around here somewhere. I think he has books, with him. And she said, you gotta write about this brother. He had this museum about collectors. And so at the time, now I'm covering more art, and like a lot of people in the arts, I'm concerned about what's going on with administration and who gets to tell stories. And so William tells me the story about African American art collectors, and we're talking about lens, and it's really very interesting about, you see art, I've been covering art for years, you would clap, happy when you see African American artists from James Lawrence, to Lady Catlett, to John Biggers, in these museums, but not realizing how they got there. We were the people trying to fact, so they would be founded by other people, like we were doing the work. And William teaches me that. So in reporting that story, of course, because I know it's always in my business. I think she just called me just to find out what I'm working on. She can make me write about stuff that she cares about, which is mostly stuff I care about, so that's okay. So she said, you should talk to Myrah Brown Green, because she's writing this book, Keepers of a Movement, and there's a lot of focus on collectors and who collectors are, and so many political things going on. Things going on in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, family. We were just really trying to figure out who gets to tell the stories, who gets to collect the art, why it matters, and how come our lens isn't like the one that's featured, focused, and centered. So I called Myrah as an expert to talk about the Collectors Museum. And that's kind of how I got this job to introduce everyone, because there's a sort of a 360-degree idea about all the things that are going on right now in the world, about who gets to tell art, whose lens it's from, and the founding of these artists. Because, as you know, there are more artists in the world than the ones that have been, I guess, christened by mainstream America. And we forget that it was our collectors who even bring it to their attention in the first place. I happen to be working on a story about that now. More, but that's long and complicated. You guys didn't want to hear me, so I'm going to go back and introduce people here. So I want to bring up Kia Carter Simmons, who serves as the Associate Director of Exhibitions and Public Programs at Temple University. Kia is going to be doing the introduction, the moderator up there, so come on up. When I call you, come up. I want to bring up Sherry Shine. She is a fiber artist and collector. And she has a beautiful exhibition here at a Bloom to Fine Arts earlier this year. So Sherry Shine, please come up. Hi. And I want to, last but not least, from Dr. Myrah Brown read the reason we are all here for this. It is her book. It is her book signing. You should buy it. You can buy it back there. $50. They take all cash, cash app, checks, and anything you got, can't take it. They'll pay it. So come on. And I also want to introduce Myrah Mason, the inaugural Max Fellow. And that fellowship has been funded by Bastide Dubois, who is the founder of CCGM. So come on up. And I know this is going to be a wonderful discussion. We will all learn.
Shall we move down?
Oh, yeah. We will all learn and understand that we are the keepers of the art and of the movement. And
radical responsibility.
well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Myrah Mason. I am a historian, a curator, and the inaugural Bastide Dubois Curatorial Fellow at the Museum of African American Art Collection. For those who may be encountering MAC for the first time, the Museum of African American Art Collections is dedicated to recognizing and documenting the vital role collectors play in preserving, interpreting, and sustaining Black art and cultural heritage. Through exhibitions, scholarship, and public programming, MAC brings greater visibility not only to the artists and objects that comprise these collections, but also to the collectors whose stewardship helps ensure that these histories endure. That makes today's conversation around Dr. Myrah Brown Green's Keepers of a Movement particularly meaningful. Her work asks us to think about collecting as something much larger than acquisition, as an act of stewardship, cultural memory, and ultimately participating in how the history of Black art is written. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Kia Carter-Simmons. Kia is an independent cultural facilitator and, of course, the Associate Director of Exhibitions and Public Programs for Temple's Contemporary Art Gallery at Tyler School of Art. She also contributed the foreword to Keepers of the Movement, bringing her own perspective to a book that documents the collectors whose stewardship has helped preserve and shape the history of Black art. Please join me in welcoming Kia Carter-Simmons, who will introduce our panelists and lead us in today's
I can help you. Please do. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have Sister Sherry Shine, Dr. Myrah Brown Green. So Sherry is a quilter. I first encountered Sherry's work here at Ubuntu Gallery, and it's absolutely beautiful and exquisite. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Myrah Brown Green in 2018 through her husband, Dan Simmons, and being familiar with her work, preservation in addition to her quilting, but preservation in terms of just documenting collectors and collections, and she's a great friend, so welcome, and let's get started. So, I would like for you to share, why do you think it's important for Black people to collect? The role of Black collectors, the role that they play in preserving art, stories, legacies, especially those that define Black life.
So, some of you know that I'm also a quilt maker. I'm a master quilter as well. And I remember, I don't even know what year it was. It was a long time ago. But Dr. Carolyn Mazzolini, which some of you may know, she reached out to me and asked me to be in her show that was going to be at the Folk Art Museum. And this was my first exhibition, quilt exhibition. I made the smallest quilt in the show, but it got the most play actually, which I didn't understand at first. And then we we connected. She was tough, and she told me that if you think people are gonna see your work just showing in New York, you got another thing coming. Like, people are not gonna know you. And then what she did was, and this is where the whole importance of understanding and knowing Black collecting. She sent me a book and one of her little quilts. She sent me a little quilt that's in the book, and a book by a white collector named Eli Leon. And she wrote me a letter, and she said, you need to know who he is, because he's buying up all of our quilts. And as a matter of fact, I heard that those quilts are in California right now, and they're so damaged because they're molded. A lot of them are molded, and so so when people collect, I believe that it should not just be for money. And the reason why I call it the Bookkeepers of Aid movement is because Black folks collect what they love. And it should be, there should be a conversation. I don't really, yeah, I like to make the money when I sell a quilt, but I want whoever's gonna buy my work to have a plan for it, because I don't want it to stop there with that person. And so that's why, for me, Black folks collecting should be bigger than just collecting the work and having something pretty to tell their friends, because there's so many folks that I've talked to who just think that they're all that because they have this Catlett or Lawrence or Bearden, and they don't know what they're gonna do with it after they move on to the next round. And so keeping this particular collection is so valuable, especially when it's of our work, our people. There should be some familiarity in what it is that we gather. I don't know if I answered the question. There's just so much. It's like there's so many layers.
I mean, you said it perfectly. I do collect. I collect what I love, but I've definitely done what you're talking about. Who am I going to leave it to? And not just who am I going to leave it to, but what am I going to tell them? What stories am I going to share with them about why I collected it, why I loved it, maybe what the artist is thinking, if I know, what the artist is thinking. So, if you can answer perfectly.
Actually, thank you for that. My next question is, what do you think is lost when Black art, stories, and objects aren't intentionally collected and preserved? And when they are, what do you feel is gained as collectors and artists in their own right?
So, I was just thinking, what came to me right away, once you all get the book, there's a collector in there named Donna Chambers. She collected Blackamoor jewelry. Now, some will say, well, these people weren't Black people, because the work in the book is supposed to be Black art, right? But as an art historian, when you go deeper to the folks out of Italy or those places, everything goes back to Africa, right? And so when you look at the work at at that jewelry, she's a jeweler, Donna Chambers, she's a jeweler. We went to college together. I didn't know she was there when I was there. But but she's a quilter now. And so one day she called me and she asked me what I was working on, and I told her I was working on a book. And she said, I want to be in the book. She said, I have a collection. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, it's Blackamoor jewelry. And I said, oh my gosh, I want to see. So she sent me a couple of pictures she had on her phone. And she said, I can go to the bank right now and get them. Because they're like 18, 24, 14 karat gold, pearls, rubies, like all of these. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous. And I think, can I just go back to how I put the book together? Because I think that'll kind of tell, like, that'll give us something also to, so first of all, I do know that there are many more collectors out there in the world, Black collectors, than 39 collectors. So my goal for writing any of the publications that I write, you know, like when I did Brooklyn on My Mind, right now I'm working on a book called Talking Quilts. I know that it doesn't cover everybody and it doesn't cover everybody and everybody's collections. I hope that a younger person who is studying art will have something to build on what I at least began, right? So that's the purpose. So what I did was, I wanted to show the depth and breadth that Black people collect. So it's not like, so there's two types of Black collectors, at least. One type is the collectors who have a list and believe that they're so prestigious in their collecting that they will collect a Capulet, a Romance Linen, a Jacob Lawrence, all these names that the average Black person knows, right? Then you have the collector, the Black collector who collects what they love also, and so many other Black lanes they go in and know the importance of those collections that our children may never know about if they don't collect them. Like one of the things my prima, who's sitting in the front, she collects the cameo, the Black cameo. What's the sister's name? Corinne Simpson. So you'll see her, and she supports them. She supports Corinne. Someone gifted me a necklace, and I didn't even know whose necklace it was. But now I usually wear it, but it didn't go well. But anyway, so I wanted to show in the book the depth and breadth that Black folks collect. And then I also wanted to have some personal something where I asked them, why are they a keeper of a movement? What was the first piece of art they ever collected? And for me, I remember it being a Masusa. Oh, I'm so sorry. And so that's what this is about. I've had people come up to me already saying that they're angry with me because they're not in the book. And I'm like, well, write another one. You could write Keepers of a Movement Part 2. But I think that's why it's, what was the question again?
I asked, what do you think is lost when things are intentionally collected or preserved, and what do you think it's gained when they are?
Yeah, and I don't think that they're always intentionally collected as well. Sometimes we collect things that we just absolutely adore. And then you find out you have more than one of them. Like your purse when you were holding it the other day with Corinne's cameo on the front. I had never seen one of her purses. That's the only one? Oh, wow. Okay. So we need to know that. And our children need to know who she is. And, so I think that, and just like my brother, who is sitting up here on my shoulders with me, Danny. He was a phenomenal collector of massive stuff. That's when I first saw Vanessa German's work at his home, right? But there was a room full of black comic paraphernalia. And that was what he loved. And so, I collected that with Sousa because it was pretty. I didn't know what it was. My white teacher in the 6th grade, I think I was like in the 6th grade, she asked me if I knew what it was, and I said no. And she told me what it was, and she said, "You still want it?" I said, "Yes." I had enough money for it. It was at one of the museums that we went as a class. My mother had given me money. And my mother and father appeased me and hung it in the doorway because there was the prayer is in there. And, I grew up in a Christian household. And I mean, that was another culture. Now I teach art history, and that's a connection that I can make to my students. So I used to enjoy touching it when I went out and touching it when I came in my house. I believed even as a 8th grader that I was getting some sort of protection, some blessing. You know what I mean? So so. Okay. I can give you another question.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Wait a minute, did you just not answer that question?
Well, I mean, I don't know, it's lost.
Right.
I can only tell you, right.
It's lost to you.
Yes, what do you think?
What do you think is like lost if things you don't collect as a collector? If you didn't do what you did, right? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think I would know because I'm not doing it. So why we try to do it is because it's important. It's important to not just us, but we feel like it's important to the culture. We sort of feel, my husband and I had this conversation this morning about collecting. We feel an obligation, like you felt obligated, right? Like this needs to be put out there and preserved in a way. So we feel a lot of that obligated to collect.
Okay, so another wonderful segue, how does that instinct, right, to protect legacy and to document, how does that show up in what you each personally choose to collect? And even the work that you create?
Good question. So, I mean, the first thing we talked about this morning, I'll go back to that conversation, was in our collection, we have living artists because we feel it's very important, like you were saying, to support them so that they can continue to work. And then, we also have artists who are no longer with us. And you're in a space and you see a piece and it kind of just talks to you. You become so attracted to it. And you think it should be something that you can look at every day. Sort of, that's how we don't go in with any expectations. We don't go in saying, oh, we're gonna go get this person. We don't do any of that. It's just being in the room, surrounded by the work, looking at it, and if we love something, we have a conversation about it and go from there.
And can you share just a little bit of the type of art that you collect with the audience?
Living artists, Yolanda Words in the room. Tammy Desime, she's an African-American woman, but she's an abstract artist. I would implore everyone to look her up. The colors are amazing. I think it's very rare to find a Black woman abstract artist. A lot of her work is tied to God and her religion, and you see that through her colors. Woodrow Nash, an excellent sculptor, very popular. Sheesh, who else? Some catlets, like you said. Richard Mayhew, watercolor, so beautiful, hard to work with. Did an excellent job at it. Joseph Holston, a bit old school, but love his work. So we'll do some other people. We have a couple of Sherry Shines coming in the house. That was a battle.
A battle because you didn't want it?
I didn't want it. So. Yeah.
Oh, what work do I have?
Yeah, can you tell us about the work that you collect?
I don't really cook. I get a pleasure, and it's so funny, because people say, oh, I do have a lot of work. I do have a lot of work. So I have, of course, Brooklyn Post. I trade a lot with people. Of course, I have Dr. Maslow's works. You know, for monumental moments, she'll ask me what I want, which I'm blessed. Faith Ringo, of course, who I absolutely adored. I used to privately pick her up from her house and bring her to, when I was working at City College, to come see the shows I curated. And we both were born, we have October birthdays. So, so I spent a lot of time. Speak up, please. I spent a lot of time with her. Hey, Sophia. Speak up a little bit. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time with her. Otto Neal's, I have his etchings and sculpture and that sort of thing. Sana Crispina Flores, photographer. His hangs in my home. Philly photographer. My granddaughter, who's a photographer, she hangs in my home. Who else do I have? Catlett. I think I traded a quote for Catlett. You know, for me, yes, I do like getting paid for my quilts. However, there's an African saying, which I cannot remember it right now, I'm having a senior moment. Once you complete something, there's like this invisible stamp that goes on it, and it no longer belongs to you. That's what I believe. And so I have no issues trading with folks. And that's what the old school artists used to do. Maslownian and Faith Ringo traded quilts all the time. I remember when Carolyn was auctioning one of Faith's quilts to pay the rest of her son's medical school bill. So I do a lot of that. So we can trade quilts. So anyway, yeah, so those are the, and then people like Ken Wright, who's a really fine glass artist, Ross, who's in the book. I don't have any his work, and we always talked about, yes. So I like to also. So anyway, but yeah, so I have, yeah, I do have a lot of work when I think about it, and I started giving it to my children, and for like birthdays, that's what they get art. Yeah. Yeah.
So we know, you mentioned earlier, Brooklyn on my mind. And then we have the book that we're here to talk about today, People's Movement. So you do a really good job of documentation.
You're
another goal? What is it that drives you, compels you to just do this work? And you do the work for your people, right? You do that for us. What you keep going. You keep putting out the importance, why this is important. We need to do this, right? So what is it that pushes and propels you? And then I'd like to hear about, I think you mentioned in the first piece that you collected, right? I want to know better about the first piece of art. If, there's not, and like that is important to you as well.
For me, it's just about archiving. Like, there's so many stories out there. The book that I'm doing right now, it's not just Black quilters. There's some other quilters in the book that will be in the book, but I wanted there to be Black quilters and white quilters a lot of times don't show together. So I wanted to show, so I was very strategic in the new book that I'm working on. And it's a process that I came up with, a 3-stage process. So you'll have to get the book when it comes out. But it's mainly archiving. We don't know what our people do. When I did, and the publishing company is Schiffer, and Schiffer is a family business pretty much. So I don't get in advance. So, and to create a book, you've got to have photographs. Most of the images in the book, I photographed them myself. And looking on my mind, I didn't tell people that I did. But one of the collectors said, you have to put your name there to show that by any means necessary, you were going to create this document. And so I learned how to go and photograph. Sometimes I would ask the artist to bring the work outside when the sun was just kind of right before the sun came up, and I would photograph it so I would have good light, because I didn't have any fancy cameras. It's so funny because every book I do, the camera that I'm using, after it's finished, I give that one to my granddaughter. So she knows which book this camera photograph. And Dr. Maslumi will give me her camera, which is interesting. But it's mainly about archiving, just making sure we know, like there's so many people, like there's a lot of artists too that because they've become the superstars, they got some attention with the gallery or white folks. There becomes a lot of other black artists become marginalized by black artists, which we should not expect, but it does happen. And so there's a number of artists in this book that you probably will not know. Some will not have websites. Some names have to be called. When I did Brooklyn on My Mind, before I did Brooklyn on My Mind, I curated this huge exhibition at City College. I used to do the arts there. And I did this really big exhibition called Harlem in the City. And the person who did the cover, I had the cover of The Last Poet's first album in the show, right? Because I was looking at Harlem. And so, and the name of the person was this brother who ended up moving across the country to be in a Native American reservation, right? At the opening, another artist, photographer, he came up to me and he says, I really did that photograph. But what happened was, the company, the A&R, whatever, that they didn't like it. They didn't like that image. The Last Poet's first album cover, that one, you know what I'm talking about, the old school folks. And he said that they got another photographer, had him shoot them, and then they didn't like what he shot, this brother who got the credit, and they ended up going back to what this other brother wrote, right? And I felt so bad because he wasn't getting, you know, it was a big story. And so I promised him that in my next book, I would make sure I put him in there. And that's what I did. He wasn't from Brooklyn. He was from Harlem, but I said, it's my book. I can put whoever I want in there. And so it's about archiving. It's about telling the true stories and of the people and actually talking to the folks, talking to the artists. I mean, I don't mind sitting at the feet of anybody. I don't see myself, and I'm gonna be 70 next month. And so but I don't mind. I believe in circle leadership, where a 6-month-old, my little grandnephew, my new grandnephew, Santi, he knows my voice. He's only, how old is he? He's 10 months, and he teaches me. So I don't mind him being in the center of the circle, right? You know, I function from a very spiritual place, and I just want everything that I can find to be. Are there any quilters in the house besides Sherry Shine? Anybody who does fiber art? Oh, okay, because I have the space in my book. I was going to get it. But anyway, so that's why it's important. It's about archiving. For me, that's basically it. It's about when I teach my students in my classes, some of them don't know who Jacob Lawrence is or was, or they don't know who Elizabeth Cabot was. They have to know who these people are by the time they leave my class. They don't know who Zenobia Bailey is, some of them, but they have to know. I send, you better believe I send them on one of their field trips, on one of their class assignments. They have to go down to see Zenobia's ceiling at the one train station. I send them. So those kinds of things, we have to look out for our people. And then when you talk about the abstract folks, the abstract artists got the baddest rap. Not bad as good, but the Black people thought that they should be doing narrative stuff. They thought that they should be painting the Black fist and doing all of those things, and the white folks felt the same way too, so they were caught in the middle. That's a book I would love to write on the Black abstract artists. You know, because that's important. And we've been doing abstract art. Like I can go back and to the Congo, to early Nigeria, to Mali, to all of those, the bungalow fabrics and all of those patterns. So that's all abstract stuff. They put that term, that's a term that just doesn't even make sense sometimes. But anyway.
So, Vashti and
We did. I want to hear the whole story.
So I was young in my my 20s, and her name is Janine Jackson. And she said, Sherry, I'm having an art party and I want you to come. I was like, what's an art party? And you know, you're young, you're 20s, your Saturdays are precious, right? And she's like, it's gonna be next Saturday, I want you to come. What is an art party? She's like, you'll see when you get there. So it was a lot like this. You know, it was a room full of energetic people, excited to be there. There was music, there was food, there was laughter, but the most important thing was there was art. And there was a moderator who was very well versed in each artist's work. So this one moderator would talk about each artist, where they came from, what they did, how much the work was. And if you were interested at the end, you could go and buy the piece, talk to the moderator. And I bought, at this time, I was on a budget, right, in my 20s, paying rent, bills, subway, you know, lunch, all that kind of stuff. So I bought two Jacquees by Frank Morrison.
Nice.
And I remember meeting Mr. Morrison and telling him, and he was like, you should have those insured. You know, make sure you look into how you get those protected. I don't do that anymore. So that was my first experience and first time that I bought something. And
I love that.
I do still have them. I do still have them.
So I'm looking at the time and I have just questions, and this so we can get to audience questions. Looking ahead, what do you hope the next generation of Black collectors and culture bearers will carry forward from your work and your example?
The work of publishing, work? Or
She said your work. From your,
I'm talking to both of you from your individual like work in terms of contribution to the culture. Your books, your quilting. Well, you both have, you both have the answer.
Okay.
But like, what do you want to impart? What do you want to?
I'm really excited about the next generation of collectors, of Black collectors. There's a collector, there's two young collectors in this book. Of course, my granddaughter and my grandson. And then DeMonte O'Brien. Did you know Dr. Seabrook? The quilter from South Carolina. So it's her grandson. And Dr. Mazmumi reached out to me and told me I had to look at this. I had to talk to this young man who's a collector in Atlanta. It was Dr. Seabrook's grandson. And I did. Now, the way that the book is curated, I looked at everybody's collections. And then I decided so that there wouldn't be any really repeats in collections that were shown, I picked out a section of their collection. Some didn't get it. Some wanted to still tell me what they were gonna put in the book, and I had to say, it's my book. But so he's a young collector doing really well. I don't even think he's 40 yet. I don't even know if he's 30 yet. Maybe he's in his 30s. But he travels all over the world collecting. And I'm surprised he's not here today, because usually he flies to wherever we do book talks. He's so excited about this, right? And we have one in Maryland at Linda Sutton, who's one of the collectors in the book, home, and he flew up from Atlanta, and he brought with him about 3 or 4 young collectors. I have so much faith in the new generation of Black collectors. They are doing it. Some are buying the old stuff, but a lot of them are making ways to create these, the attention on the young folks as well. And there's so many young artists that are just phenomenal. And I put some of the young folks in the book. I mean, I have faith in them. I really, really do. And I don't think I'm gonna be disappointed, because what I've seen them do and how I've seen them collect and just be so open. I mean, right now, you know, when I talked to him the other day, he says, I'm focusing on photography right now. And I'm gonna tell him about this photography here. And I do collect on a certain level. If I feel like I'm not gonna get something, like if I'm not gonna buy, like I don't buy it, I'm gonna call one of the collectors and say, you need to get. And I'll go to a show and I'll FaceTime them and I say, this is the piece that I really wanted. So you get it. I want you to have it. And that's what I do. I really do. Even when I was in a show at Kinkelva with Corinne Jennings, who was in the book. One of the only Black folks I know that has such an extensive collection of 18th and 19th century Black paintings, the Duncansons, the Bannekers, all of those things. She has it. Them white folks, they knock on her door so that they can see the stuff because it's not in their museum, right? She allowed me to have a few pieces to put in the book. What she did, which I thought was really special, she brought a young person into the gallery when our show was up with Sana and Aisha Tanway Bell and Heather Williams. And she walked around the gallery with him, and we should do this more. She walked around the gallery with this young person and she asked him, what piece resonates with you the most? And he was young. And he picked out one of my pieces, which is, I do a lot of trees. And she got one of her supporters to buy the quilt for the gallery so that he could look at it when he wanted to. And I thought that was so special. And those are the kinds of things that we need to start doing so that our children and our children's children will be able to have and see these kinds of things. And I know when your work gets acquired, it's so special, especially if especially if it's in a public place. I mean, we gotta tell folks where I have a quilt that was acquired by the Renwick last year. And so you can, by law, they have to pull it out for you to look at it if you want to, if you're doing research. Research is my thing, it's my jam, as my sister would say. And so you can do that. Have your children. I took my granddaughter to DC. She came with me, and we stayed in DC, and I wanted her to get a Library of Congress library card. She's a photographer. She's going into art history, right? And I wanted her to have access to everything that's been published. Everything, all the photographs that are there, all the books that are there. Like, we have to take, it's so simple. Philly is 2 hours away from, yeah. Go and get a library card. I try to keep one from the Library of Congress. Take our children, they can get it, you just take them. And it's free. And there's like all these books and photos and everything. So I just have no fear that these young people are gonna make us proud.
Okay. So when I think about what will my legacy be, I have no idea. But the only thing that I can tell you is that I love making quotes. And when I am in that space, in my studio to myself, among fabric, needles, bread, sewing machine, it's my jam. And it's just a perfect place. So my favorite thing is for people to see the work. I'm like you, yes, I'm excited if I sell something, but for you to like see the work, to ask me about it, like, why did you do this? What were you thinking? That's the best. It's just the best thing. Yeah, it's the best. So, I mean, when you make something, you hope people will collect it, but again, even if they don't, just for them to see it, maybe ask me about my process, why I made it. I know you do a lot of trees. I mean, I work in series, so now, since I've sort of laid that foundation, people will say, oh, I want something from her Traveling While Black series. Or, I want something from her The Journey Continues series, or, something like that. So I started the series because for me, as an artist, it keeps me kind of grounded and I'm not kind of all over the place. When I am working with myself. Just to admire the work. That would always be amazing.
Tell her she dropped that. When she was sitting there, he dropped that.
So, before we wrap up, want to open it up to the audience. Are there questions that we have for Sherry? Tell us who you are.
Oh, hello, my name is Terry Young Jr. I'm originally from Louisiana, been here about 10 years, educator, activist, do a little writing. And my question is, my grandmother and my aunts who have passed away, they left a lot of art, like a lot of different paintings. One of my aunts drew, they had